This is a bike factory in Sri Lanka. They produce 500 bikes a day. It's busy, it's fast, and it's what global manufacturing looks like today. But here in the United States, things look a bit different. I went to a bike factory to see what made in America looks like in 2025.
There is no such thing as going on Amazon and buying a bicycle-making machine.
Is it possible to truly build a bike from raw material to finished product? I went on the inside to find out. And by the time we finished the tour of the factory, I wasn't asking how you build stuff in America. I was asking if you even can. I'm Kyla Scanlon. I'm an economist who explains how the economy feels, not just how it works. I've built a large audience on TikTok and Instagram and across my newsletter doing just that. And I recently wrote a book called In This Economy about it too.
First of all, I want to tell you how much I enjoyed the book.
And I love bikes. I own 3. I've ridden hundreds of miles at a time off the Pacific coast, in the mountains of Colorado, and across the Midwest. And to me, the bike felt like the perfect place to start to understand American manufacturing. A bike seems simple, mechanical. Yes, it has a lot of parts, but no screens or circuit boards. Surely it's the kind of thing we could still be making here. They're trying in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We are at American Bicycle Group, where you all make bicycles. I wanted to see what goes into making the key parts of the bike: the frame, the headset, the wheels, the brakes, and the drivetrain. As this bike comes together, I'm going to keep track of all the components and how likely it is to be made in the United States. First up, the frame. A lot of bikes are made out of steel and aluminum. But at light speed, they use something lighter and higher quality: titanium.
Titanium has the strength of steel and the lightweight aspect of aluminum. That's in essence the appeal to it.
Titanium is beautiful. It's lightweight, it's rust-proof, and it's strong enough to ride for life. The reality is they're shaping and making this bike here, but we don't produce the raw material that goes into it. Most of it's been offshored for years because it's cheaper to source overseas.
It's very difficult to get US-made titanium. Of course, we try to bring as much in from the United States as we can. If I put a PO in with a US mill, it might be 18 or 24 months right now because we're competing with all the aerospace companies.
Yeah.
So we are not their first priority.
We can mark this part as not made in America, at least not fully. Because even if the bike is built here, the metal it's made from isn't. Titanium starts its life as something called titanium sponge. Once, the US made a lot of it, but by 2020, almost every sponge plant in the country had shut down. Why? Because making sponge is expensive, dirty, and doesn't have the short-term demand that makes investors happy. So today, we import roughly 95% of what we use, mostly from Japan, which has invested heavily in advanced manufacturing.
This titanium grommet is actually a microcosm of some of the problems that we have. So this titanium grommet is 5 cents if I purchase it overseas.
5 cents, that's it. Now guess how much it would cost to make that same grommet here.
If I were to scale up to produce this, it may cost me $70,000 or $80,000 worth of tooling to do.
That's the logic problem of US manufacturing. Even if you want to build here, even if you're committed to it, you have countries like Japan investing heavily in advanced inputs and countries like China undercutting on costs. So that's the frame. It was built here, but it wasn't born here. And now it's time to build around it.
You know what is easy to make in America or anywhere? Your own website. I'm here today to tell you about this episode's sponsor, Framer. Framer is a no-code website building tool that helps you launch any website in days. One of the best parts about Framer is you don't have to be a developer or a web designer to build a beautiful, custom, and functional website. They have tons of tools to help you bring your big idea to life. Their tool called Workshop is AI-powered. Workshop turns your requests into prompts that generate code to build interactive features on your site. If we click animated clock, it writes a prompt for AI to make the feature. You can see the code it's spinning up to create our clock. And now we have a countdown clock to show when new episodes of Business Explains the World will go live. Are you ready to build a site that looks hand-coded without having to hire a developer? Launch your site for free at framer.link/dynamo. That's framer.link/dynamo. And use the code DYNAMO2025 to get a month free of Framer Pro. And now let's get back to Kyla.
The drivetrain, the gears, the tires, and the tech. The parts that make this bike go.
The drive, that's most important. So we've got Shimano here. GRX, it's a group set attuned to gravel-specific kind of riding.
Surely we could make these in the US, right?
From Japan.
Nope. Of course, it wasn't always like this. The 1970s saw a bike boom. We were selling more bikes than cars. US companies attempted to manufacture components and bikes domestically, but they couldn't keep up with demand. Schwinn was the biggest name in the game back then. They manufactured some of their own parts and built bikes in Chicago. But by the 1980s, things were shifting. Labor costs were rising as workers joined unions and went on strike. And overseas, Japan and Taiwan were building faster, cheaper, and lighter stuff. So Schwinn outsourced. And by 1991, it shut down its last US factory. So drivetrain, chain, derailleur, and gears, almost all entirely made overseas.
Moving on up, we've got cockpit and headset assembly. Chris King from the US.
Chris King, that's an American company, does claim to source all its raw material in the US and make all their products in Portland, Oregon. But these are expensive. A rear hub can cost up to $600. So they are American made, but they cost a pretty penny. Now, on to what's between you and the pavement.
Of course, the whole thing that makes it move. We got the wheels. These are i9, Industry 9 from here in the US as well.
While Industry 9 makes most hubs and wheel sets in Asheville, North Carolina, most rims and tires come from overseas.
The blades on there, the rotors, are Shimano.
Even American-made wheels are usually built with global parts. For instance, rubber. Chances are the rubber on these tires began life in Southeast Asia, most likely Thailand. That's because it has one advantage we can't match. The climate there is perfect for rubber trees, plus labor's cheap. That combo made it the rubber capital of the world. So yes, America still makes wheels, but rubber, the most important part, isn't from here. And as for the rest of the bike,
This is a seat post. Full speed ahead is gonna be from Taiwan. And Silly Italia saddle, really nice carbon saddle as well.
so this bike, manufactured here in the USA, sure, but the parts, Japan, Italy, Thailand, and yes, some are US, but take a closer look. And even some of those parts are not totally sourced from the United States. It's certainly built here, but with parts from everywhere. And even the machines themselves sometimes aren't American made.
The really big, huge, bulky machinery from the 1930s and 1940s was all made in the Northeast. Some of it was Hartford, Connecticut, Toledo, Ohio. And then there's this evolution, maybe the 60s and 70s, made in Japan. And the newer machines are made somewhere else in Southeast Asia now.
It's American manufacturing, powered by a global supply chain. What do you think of the distinction between made in America and assembled in America?
It's not the same. And I would say there's very few industries where something can actually be firmly made in America all the way up the supply chain to whatever the raw material is.
Because here's the deal. To put a label that says made in the USA on a product, it's not enough for it just to be assembled here. According to the FTC, it has to be all or virtually all made in the US, meaning every significant part and process, down to the screws and raw materials, has to come from here. And that's rare. Most companies can't meet that bar, so they settle for softer claims like assembled in America or made in the USA with global materials. Because pretty much anything you plug in, power up, or put batteries in, it all starts overseas. Like here in Sri Lanka, where this factory can produce up to 500 bikes in a single day with a workforce of 350 people. Rows of workers, constant movement. Most of the bike, the frame, fork, mudguard, and rims are made right there in-house. But here's the thing. Even in Sri Lanka, raw materials are sourced from countries like India and China. So is anything truly made in one country anymore? This is emblematic of what manufacturing looks like globally. Factories in Sri Lanka and even China all rely on a global supply chain. The difference? Labor. At this Sri Lankan factory, a semi-skilled worker earns approximately $150 per month for a 45-hour work week. Compare that to Tennessee's luxury light-speed bikes, which has a smaller staff, higher wages, and makes far fewer bikes.
So what is the future of manufacturing in the United States?
Well, my hope is that the future of manufacturing is like anything else in life, much more balanced. We don't have to have all the manufacturing here, of course, but it would be beneficial to this industry and to many other industries for us to have a balance whereby there is more manufacturing in the United States, there is better labor pool, there are these tangential industries that we've spoken about.
But even if you reshore the factory, it doesn't mean you automatically reshore the job. Today's factories are leaner, smarter, and full of sensors. The assembly line has been replaced by robotics and software. And even if we pull it off, there's no guarantee that the jobs would outweigh the costs. A full-blown reshoring effort with all of the investment required could take decades. We're talking about rebuilding foundries, mines, and metal processors, training hundreds of thousands of workers. That's a generational initiative. Of course, manufacturing is still vital to the economy. It still accounts for nearly 10% of the US GDP, and jobs in manufacturing have actually increased over the last decade, but remain vastly below the all-time high. It's still a productivity driver, but it's no longer the jobs engine it once was, and pretending otherwise risks overpromising. So what does this bike actually tell us? At first, I thought this would just be a story about manufacturing and if we can still build stuff here. But the more I got into it, the more it became a story about loss. That's what I loved most about visiting the factory, watching people who really know how to do things simply do things. But a lot of the things they need to do what they do are scattered and fragmented and priced out. Underneath a bicycle's every weld and part is a network of decisions, supply chains, pricing structures, lead times, labor markets, and regulatory constraints. American Bicycle Group is an example of a company trying to do everything it can to build a bike here in the US. They've created real jobs, but even they can't do it here alone. Given the chance, they might.
The only way to expand and grow even more as far as Made in America would be to actually get the suppliers and tangential industries, so the actual raw materials, etc., and have that capacity grow within the United States. And of course, we would buy that then. But right now, there's just not the capacity or the raw materials in the United States being produced.
But after decades of globalization, it'll be a real slog for any company to make a bike, or anything else for that matter, from raw material to finished product domestically. Bikes are just the beginning. So next time you see a Made in America label, not assembled in America, remember, that's a supply chain miracle.
Hey, thanks for watching this episode. If you liked it, you're gonna like our new show, Real Big Machines. It's about the biggest, most powerful machines on the planet, the businesses behind them, and the people who love them. Check it out at the link below.